Hi, I'm Dave DeWitt, and today I want to prove to you that 1 plus 1 equals 2. I know you probably think he's finally lost his mind, but if you bear with me, I'll try to show you why I think this is important. After finishing a paper on this, I told my wife I just proved 1 plus 1 equals 2. She said, "I'm relieved to hear that." Somehow I don't think she was being sincere. But really, believe it or not, this needs to be proved, and the proof also establishes the existence of God, which is why it's a relevant discussion. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that mathematics is theological. First, let's talk about pantheism. That would be the Eastern religions like Hinduism and Buddhism, probably known best by the force of the Star Wars movies. Pantheism tends to use mathematics practically, but not theologically. They claim the whole universe is one God force. So, for example, Hinduism would claim 1 plus 1 equals 2 is an illusion, whereas the universe is all one. So pantheism would say theologically 1 plus 1 equals 1. If you pointed out this is illogical, that would not bother them at all because they believe logic was just a Western invention. Of course, they have to use logic to prove there's no such thing as logic, but that doesn't seem to bother them either when they attempt to illustrate that with the real world. It doesn't work. For example, some pantheists will say if you add one drop of water to another drop of water, you still have one drop of water. 1 plus 1 equals 1. The problem, of course, is that the drop of water is made up of a certain number of atoms. Another equally sized drop of water has the same number of atoms. If you put them together, you have twice the number of atoms. 1 plus 1 equals 2, not 1. Now let's talk about atheism and those who think like atheists, the progressives, evolutionists, humanists, Marxists. They tend to not accept 1 plus 1 equals 2 as existing in the real universe. Their idea is that 1 plus 1 equals 2 is not something that man discovered. Rather, it's something that man created. Mathematics, they say, is invented by man. The problem with the conclusion of both the pantheists and the atheists is that mathematics can actually describe reality. True, man has added mathematical labels to real concepts, but the letters and numbers represent an order reality in the physical world which man did not create. We label things with ones, twos, and threes, and X's, Y's, and Z's, and we label processes with pluses and minuses, multiplication and division signs, and conclusions with equal signs, but we only create the label, not the reality. Joe Carter from Gospel Coalition gave this example. Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, the inventor of calculus, was asked by one of his students, why is 1 and 1 always 2, and how do we know this? Leibniz replied, 1 and 1 equals 2 is an eternal, immutable truth that would be so whether or not there were things to count or people to count them. Close quote. Mathematics is a language used to describe reality, but it does not create the reality. If you have an apple and I give you another apple, you have two apples. You can label that in a different way if you like, but the reality is the result's the same, whatever you tend to choose to call it. You've got two apples. It's as basic as the old question, if a tree falls in the woods, does it make a noise, whether or not there is anyone around to hear it? Well, of course it does. How do we know? Because when trees fall, they make noise. Man can recognize it and record it or not, but he does not create it. Mathematics only recognizes labels and reasons through reality. Take, for example, the simple formula distance equals velocity or speed times time. We call it d equals VE, distance equals velocity times time. But then, because of the logic represented by algebra, it's also true that velocity equals distance divided by time, and time equals distance divided by speed or velocity. But we didn't create that, we just discovered it. For example, if I drive at an average of 60 miles an hour for 2 hours, I'll have driven a distance of 120 miles. Suppose I'm going to go to Grandma's house and she lives 120 miles away, and I can drive at an average of 60 miles an hour. Then I know it's going to take me 2 hours to get to Grandma's house. If Grandma lives 120 miles away and it took me 2 hours to get there, my average speed is 60 miles an hour. Knowing, too, the third one can be instantaneously calculated by the GPS in my phone, my car, my airplane, or spaceship. I didn't create that reality. I just discovered it. But where did that information come from? Answer, it's just there. Somebody discovered it, but nobody created it. It's part of reality. It's just real. It's as a tree falling and making noise. We discover it, but we don't create it. We put numbers on it and apply the logic of algebra to it, because algebra is a language that works in the real world. But D equals VT simply exists in the universe. Nobody created it. D equals VT and 1 plus 1 equals 2 were just there in the Garden of Eden. They were there when Noah built the ark and when Abraham moved to Canaan, just as much as they are today. There was no need to figure it out. The ancient Greek mathematician Archimedes, he lived 288 to 212 BC, discovered a number that allowed us to accurately make measurements of a circle. He discovered that if you divide the circumference of the circle by its diameter, you get the same number, 3.14159265358, and you can keep on going every time. Later, that number was called pi. So pi equals C over D, the circumference divided by the diameter. Therefore, without algebra, C equals pi D and D equals C over pi. Archimedes did not create that number. He just discovered it. It was also discovered that the area of a circle could be determined by squaring its radius and multiplying it by pi. So A equals pi r squared. None of this was created by man. It was only discovered by man. It was also part of the created universe. As time went on, we discovered more complex relationships that exist in our world, but we label them with mathematical symbols and apply logic by using the symbols of algebra and calculus. Let's evaluate some ideas proposed about mathematics. Here's one. Math is not about God, it's just what mathematicians do. My comment. The symbols and numbers are human things, but the reality they represent are created by God. Here's another comment. Math is only about man. It does not glorify God. My comment. Although mathematicians can just use math to solve problems for fun, math is also a logical tool. Like any tool, it has no value in itself. It can be used for good or evil. But mathematicians can be used to prove good and services that can help us love one another, facilitate ministry, give to the poor, all of which can be pleasing to God. Another comment. Math is not a philosophy, a theology, or a morality. My comment. True, math is not a morality. It's just, it can be used for good or evil. but it's a philosophy in the sense that it believes there is order in the universe which can be discovered and explained logically. For example, I've often said there are three things I know for sure. I exist, the universe is real, and reason must be used to determine or understand reality. My existence is undeniable because I have to exist to make the denial. The universe is real because I'm real and I have to exist some real place. And reason is essential because if I said reason should not be used to describe reality, you could ask me if that's a reasonable statement about describing reality. The last of these requires logic to solve problems, and mathematics supplies us with a language, a tool, and a consistent process for applying reason to reality. But does math imply a theology? I think it does. Mathematics does not allow us to exhaustively understand the universe, but it proves that an orderly system of logical symbols and equations can be used to study the universe. Order never comes from chaos or chance, ever. Order comes from an intelligent being creating it. If you observe a bird nest, a beaver dam, a foxhole, or a mansion in Beverly Hills, you can be sure there's an intelligent being who made that some chaos into order. Mathematics proves that the universe is full of order and can be understood with logic and reason. Order only comes from an orderly being, and since the universe has never been observed creating anything, an order-making creator must exist. 1 plus 1 equals 2 proves the existence of a creating, orderly God who holds things together. Some scripture. Job 38, 1 and 4 to 6. The Lord answered Job, "Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who set its measurements, since you know? Or who stretched out a line on it? On what were its bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstone?" Psalm 19:1. The heavens are telling of the glory of God, and their expanse is declaring the work of his hand. Psalm 104:24. O Lord, how many are your works? In wisdom you've made them all. Proverbs 9 to 11. Give instruction to a wise man, and be still wiser. Teach a righteous man, and he'll increase in learning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. Jeremiah 10:12. It's he who made the earth by his power, he who established the world by his wisdom, and by his understanding he stretched out the heavens. Romans 1:20. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power, his divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood through what's been made, so that they're without excuse. Colossians 1:16 and 17. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Well, thanks for listening. If you want a paper I wrote on the subject, it's available on our website, relationalconcepts.org.